Hi, welcome to the Shepherd Podcast. I'm your host. I'm Pastor Chris. It's great to be with you, to share with you about people at Shepherd of the Hills, our church, our school, and our child care. Some lives that are interesting and some people that I'd like for you to get to know better. And today I am honored to have as my guest a member of our board of elders and deaconesses and a super volunteer in our church, and that's Lindsay Leifeste. Lindsay, thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
And I've got to start right off the bat with the most important, exciting thing I can ask you about. You just announced recently that you are expecting a child.
Yes.
And so can you tell us, what are you looking forward to about motherhood?
Near term, not feeling so sick anymore. So hopefully I'm getting towards the end of the first trimester, so a couple more days, and I'll have first 12 weeks behind me.
Yeah.
But long term, my husband Carl and I are very much looking forward to raising up another worker for God's kingdom.
Oh, that's great. Well, congratulations. I'm
you.
so excited for you.
We are too.
Your Shepherd family is so excited, and I told you this, but you're going to be a wonderful mom, and Carl's going to be a wonderful dad.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Fantastic. Bringing in another worker for God's kingdom.
Yes.
Can't wait. Can't wait. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your involvement at Shepherd? I mentioned you're on the board of elders and deaconesses. That's one of many things that you've been involved in over how many years at Shepherd now?
It'll be 5 years this spring.
Okay. And you seem like the kind of person who just jumps in with both feet, especially when it comes to your church.
I don't know if I'd say jumping in with both feet. I consider myself more of a dabbler. Just if there's, a need that comes up, and if I feel the Spirit calling me to kind of slide into that need, then I do. So you referred to me earlier as a super volunteer, but I certainly would not give myself that title.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the things you have been involved in, because you've done a number of things. You've seen some needs, and you've stepped into those needs and answered the call to serve. So you want to just give us an overview of some things you've been involved in here at Shepherd?
Sure. My first involvement, I first got involved with Shepherd through the young adults group. At the time, my husband was actually running the group, so that's how we initially met, was through Shepherd. And then shortly after transferring my membership here, I was asked to serve on a women's panel that Alice Clement and Sunanda put together. Right. And then that kind of morphed into, doing co-leading a teen girls Bible study based on the book Lies Young Women Believe. Mm-hmm. So we did a couple of other young adult women, and I did a couple of rounds of the teen girls study. Then, let's see, what came next? I've chaperoned a couple of the spring and summer serve events with the middle school youth, back when we could still have big youth gatherings like that, right. Obviously in the pre-COVID times.
Yeah, long time ago.
Yeah, seems like ages.
Yeah.
And then I'm also a co-facilitator for the divorce care ministry that Shepherd hosts. So there's a couple of other leaders and I that we're going to be starting up our third session for that group, upcoming on March the 10th of this year. And then after that, I was asked to be a deaconess, so I joined the board of elders and deaconesses. And most recently, I served as the chairwoman for the associate pastor call committee.
Yeah, and it was very enjoyable working with you in that process. You were always just so quick to take care of business on different things. And at the point we're recording this, we've done our interviews with our seminary candidates. We have indicated our preferences to the seminary in the district, and we're just waiting for call day, which is the middle of April. So what were some things that you learned through that process, things you learned about yourself or about how things work in the church?
So first and foremost, I realized just how important prayer is in trying to discern what God's plans may be. We know that his thoughts are not our thoughts, and his ways are not our ways. And so if we are to try to figure out what God has in mind, we definitely need the help of the Holy Spirit, and we have access to that help through prayer.
Yep, absolutely. Took a lot of prayer. I mean,
absolutely.
You go through some ups and downs, and we looked in different places, looked out in the field, looked at the seminary, so we definitely need God to guide us through the process,
yes.
And he has. He's been faithful.
Yes.
So we'll see how it turns out. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background, your upbringing in the church, and just, what in your early life helped to make you the person you are today?
So both of my parents, I come from good, strong Midwestern stock. Both of my parents were born and raised in the LCMS church, which meant that my sister and I were also brought up Missouri Synod Lutheran. And my hometown is a small little town called Dublin, Georgia. It's right in the middle of the state. We joke that it's 2 hours from any major city. So 2 hours south of Atlanta, 2 hours north of Florida, 2 hours west of Savannah, and 2 hours east of Alabama.
Centrally located.
Centrally located. But the funny thing is, when you grow up being Lutheran in the Deep South, where there's either a Baptist or a Methodist church on every street corner, we joke that being Lutheran in the South, the definition of being Lutheran in the South is where 2 or 3 are gathered in his name.
Literally,
yeah. And so much so that the church that I grew up in was actually 50 miles away from my house, so a good hour drive one way. And so growing up, it was get up early on Sunday morning, drive the hour to church for Sunday school and service, and then an hour drive back home.
So your parents modeled dedication for you.
They absolutely did, and that was one of the early lessons that was instilled in me, as just how important it is to make church and make Christian community a priority in your life.
Mm-hmm. You want to tell us a little bit about your educational background leading up into your career?
Sure. So I went to Northwestern University, so it's just outside of Chicago. Mm-hmm. That was a bit of a culture shock for me, going from those warm, mild Georgia winters to full-on winter on the shores of Lake Michigan. And I would say, even though I was raised in the Lutheran church, my faith didn't really become my own until I got to college. And the second day of being on campus for classes, one of the girls who lived a couple doors down from me in the dorm invited me to an on-campus Christian group. At that time, it was called Campus Crusade for Christ. Right. They've since renamed the group to just Cru. Right. Yeah. And so throughout college, I found a good, strong Christian community to be a part of. And it was at that point, really, that my faith went from being head knowledge to being heart knowledge.
Okay. Can you say more about that? Were there any particular moments when you really felt that happening, that holistic, faith is more than just knowing things, but it's also feeling it or living it out, putting into practice? Can you think of any moments?
I wouldn't say that there's a specific moment per se. It was more just the buildup of that realization over time. Yeah. But I can't really pinpoint a specific moment. But growing up, I don't know if you're familiar with the Enneagram personalities.
There's a lot of talk about that now.
So I'm very much a 3 on the Enneagram, which a lot of times gets labeled as the achiever.
Okay.
And so a lot of my internal motivation growing up was to achieve success and to avoid failure at all costs. Yeah. And when I got to college, I'd say a very large part of the Northwestern student body are probably also threes, very much achievement oriented. Okay. And so I eventually realized that, you know, there's absolutely nothing that I can do to achieve or earn God's love and grace. Mm-hmm. And being a part of the Christian community that I was in at Northwestern, mm-hmm. where, you know, it was a group of students of like mind who also feel that strong internal motivation for achieving success, but you know, realizing that it takes humility and nothing other than acceptance of the gift that we've been given of eternal life through Christ.
Yeah, so you learned some lessons about grace.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Showing yourself grace too, I imagine. Yeah, those are important lessons. And you know, I'm thinking about, you said it wasn't a single moment. I guess that's how God often works, is it's just gradually over time. And then you look back and say, wow, look how far I've come. I didn't even realize he was moving me along.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that those single moments that you can pinpoint don't happen, because they absolutely do happen for some people. But you know, for me personally, there wasn't a specific moment. Yeah.
God just moved you along from one place to another place in terms of your own faith walk.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so you're at Northwestern up in Chicago, a little bit cold for long periods of time.
Just a little bit.
And then what happened after Northwestern?
So while I was at Northwestern, I was a member of Navy ROTC. And so my original plans for after graduation were to go into the Navy and become a Navy pilot. But when I went for my final flight physical, they discovered that I don't have any depth perception. I can see 20/20, so I can see very clearly. I just can't judge how far away something is. And so if you're going to be landing an aircraft onto the deck of a moving ship, you kind of have to be able to tell how far away it is.
That's important, yes.
Just a little bit.
Okay, so I'm thinking that disqualified you from that job?
Yes. As soon as those test results came back, there was no way I was going to be allowed to continue in the pilot training pipeline. Right. And so at that point, I voluntarily disenrolled from the ROTC program. And since my area of study, my major in college is broadcast journalism, I started looking for a job in that field right away. And I had the misfortune of graduating in 2009, which was the height of the Great Recession.
Oh, that's right.
And so nobody was hiring, much less another broadcast journalism major. So, I was probably one of 400 applicants for any job that I would have applied for. Yeah. But by sheer stroke of, call it luck, call it providence, call it fate, I was put in touch with a fellow Northwestern graduate who was one of the anchors at the TV station very close to my hometown. It's actually the news station that my family grew up watching.
Oh, really?
And so Tyler was kind enough to move my resume to the top of the 400 application stack, and I was offered a position as a multimedia news producer.
Okay. So what did you do in that role?
A little bit of everything. I was in charge of the content, the news content, for mostly the weekend morning news shows, sometimes the weekday morning news broadcasts, and then also the noon news broadcasts during the week, a couple days a week as well.
Okay, I imagine that kept you pretty busy.
Very busy. It also meant that I didn't have much time for sleeping because since the station unfortunately was understaffed with the hard economic times. I often would have to switch from working overnight to working normal hours, and then working overnight again, and then working normal hours, and that was just on a weekly basis.
Wow.
And so I was fine working overnights if I could have just stayed working overnights,
Right.
and I could have taught myself to sleep during the day and be awake from 1 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Right.
But I never could get on that sleep cycle, a proper sleep cycle. And so after a little over a year at the station, I realized that something has to change. I mean, I'm a walking sleep-deprived zombie at this point.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I decided to apply for law school because that seemed like the best thing to do, because the hiring market was still pretty depressed at this point in 2010. Yes, 2010. And so I was offered a full tuition scholarship to Mercer University's School of Law in Macon, Georgia. So the same city that I had been in for my job. So it didn't require me moving at all. My commute just changed from driving south to driving north.
Okay, well, that worked out well.
It did.
Yeah, so you felt very much at peace with the decision to go to law school?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I was just thankful to not have to go from trying to sleep during the day to actually sleeping at night, a couple days later.
Yeah, it's like, hey, anything's an improvement from that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, great. Well, so you achieved your law degree, and that's what you're doing now, practicing law.
I am. Yeah. Although my specific area of law has changed. I started out doing litigation for the first 6 years of my law career, but I now work as an in-house attorney for a title insurance company. And
you told me that you're like a detective?
Yes. Yeah. So when most people hear title insurance, they start falling asleep right away. So one fun way to, I guess, kind of jazz it up is to describe it as being a real estate detective. So I help research whether there's a good chain of title, and also identifying any risks that may pop up when two parties are buying and selling a piece of land, a piece of property. Mm-hmm. So I work primarily on the commercial side of things. So I work more with one business selling to another business rather than residential home sales.
Okay. So what do you enjoy most about your job, and what do you find most challenging?
The thing I enjoy the most is just how organized and detail-oriented you have to be be good at the field. And I'm a very organized and detail-oriented person. I love alphabetizing things and color-coding things and putting together Excel spreadsheets for whatever the case may be. And anybody who's working in title insurance has to be very organized.
Yeah.
But I'd say probably the most difficult thing would be, so one of the reasons I got out of litigation was because I got tired of fighting with everybody all the time.
Yes.
And so as an attorney / escrow officer at a title insurance company now, I'm a third-party neutral, and everybody is working towards the same goal of getting whatever the property is, getting it sold, and getting the transaction closed. Okay. And so it's much more pleasant working with people who actually want to work together to achieve a common goal.
Yes.
But one of the difficult things is that sometimes I'll have one party ask me to do something or ask for advice on something. And since I'm required to be a neutral third party, there are instances where I can't help out a party or get them what they're asking for, because that would take me out of the realm of being neutral. Yeah. So that's difficult to have to tell either the buyer or the seller know in those specific circumstances.
So I think a lot of us sometimes find times in our lives when we have to say no to somebody or something. Can you give us some tips on how to say no nicely?
Well, I always just blame the Texas Department of Insurance and make them the bad guys. And I usually start out the email or the phone call with, well, the Texas Department of Insurance requires that I remain neutral. And if I help you out with this, I would be violating that responsibility. So I'm sorry, but I can't help you out right now.
Oh, it's a pretty clean way to explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Yeah. I also want to go back to, you mentioned you're a very organized person. So are there things in your house that are very organized? Like are the clothes organized by color or anything like that?
Yes. My closet is not just organized by color, but by color within type. So I have all my dresses together, all my skirts together, all my shirts together, all my pants together. And then, of course, they're all organized by color. Yeah. My spice rack is alphabetized.
Nice.
I almost put together the Leifeste decimal system for the bookshelves, but I decided to just kind of group them by type instead.
Yeah, that's great. I'm pretty organized. I don't know that I have a decimal system for anything. I do like things where I can find them when I'm looking for them, though. Yes. That is a good thing. Yeah.
My label maker is probably the best gift that I've ever been given.
Very good. Good thing to know. Okay, so... Well, and another thing I've learned about you like a career that involves sleeping and not arguing too much with people.
Yes.
So those are good things. All right, we're learning some things. You want to tell us any more about home life and family? You've mentioned Carl, but you want to tell us any more about him?
Sure. So as I mentioned, Carl and I actually met through Shepherd. Right. And we've been married. It will be 3 years at the end of July this year. So July 28th. 2018 was when we got married. Mm-hmm. And so I have Carl, and then obviously a little one on the way. So I'm due Labor Day weekend, which will have a very literal meaning for us this year.
Labor Day weekend.
Labor Day weekend, yes.
Wow.
And then I have just one younger sister, and both she and my parents live in Fort Myers, Florida now.
Okay. All right, so migrated south from Georgia.
Yes.
Yeah.
I tease my parents that even though they were both born and raised in the Midwest, they've now spent more than half their lives in the South, and so they can call themselves honorary Southerners now.
Yeah, very good. It's good to be a Southerner.
Yes.
Yeah. Looking back on some of the things we've talked about and just how life has played out, I just want to ask you a little more about your faith. Can you tell us more about how your faith has helped you in your life through the ups and the downs and the surprises? How has your faith been a resource and a rock for you?
So one of the things that I've learned fairly early on, if I try to make plans, they're probably not going to happen. As the saying goes, God laughs at man's plans.
Yeah, you're right.
And so one of the things I've taken away from that is, it's much more important for my goal to be to try to listen more to God and look for the opportunities that He is putting in front of me rather than trying to make my own opportunities.
That's a good way to put it. Look for the opportunities He's putting in front of you instead of trying to make your own.
Because when I think back, all of the significant decisions in my life, none of them were anything that I had planned on.
Right.
I had never planned to actually need my broadcast journalism degree, and yet I ended up working at a TV station for over a year. Right. I had never planned on going to law school, but when God closed the door on continuing in broadcast journalism, He opened the window of law school.
Right. And even with the whole Navy pilot thing, I mean, you had one idea and God was moving things in a different direction.
Exactly.
Yeah. think that's a great thing to keep in mind, though. Sometimes we can be disappointed when things don't work out according to our plan, and we have to remember that we have a God who has a plan, and his plans for our lives are good.
Exactly. And that's what I try to keep in mind on a daily basis.
Great. Well, is there anything, I want to ask you a question. Is there anything that people might be surprised to find out about you?
So, as I've mentioned, I was in the pilot training pipeline during my time in ROTC. And so part of that training included spending a month with an F-18 Hornet fighter jet training squadron out in California. Okay. And there were 6 of us, 6 college students who were there for summer training. And of course, the actual Navy pilots, it was all of their goals to get their college student to throw up on their first fighter jet ride.
Okay.
And so I was try as he might. My flight lieutenant was not able to make me throw up. Everybody else came back, with the dribbles down their chins, and but I did not. I never once threw up.
Held it together.
I did.
Very good. So you did some rolls?
Yes, I. So at one point, the flight lieutenant, comes on over the radio and says, "All right, you have control." So I took the controls and I said, "I have control, sir." And so I proceeded to immediately go into a barrel roll, and that was so much fun. I wanted to do another one, and just as I was about to roll into the second barrel roll, he takes the controls back right away and says, "No, that'll break the jet if you do two in a row."
Okay, that'd be a bad thing.
So yeah, my other claim to fame is that I almost broke a fighter jet.
Almost.
Almost.
Good. Glad that almost was in there. Yeah. Great. Well, anything else? What do you do for fun?
So I very much enjoy being outside. Carl and I just finished putting together our backyard patio upgrade. And
Nice.
So I'm very much looking forward to having dinners out on the patio while we still have nice weather and before it gets to be too hot.
Right. This is a good time for it.
And so besides being outside, I like games, especially card games, and I like to read.
What do you like to read?
I am currently reading Miracles by C.S. Lewis.
Oh, wow.
And another book called Switch on Your Brain by Caroline Leaf.
Okay. All right. I don't know Switch on Your Brain, but I know C.S. Lewis material, it can be pretty deep stuff.
I didn't realize just how deep C.S. Lewis gets. It's taking me a while to make my way through the book. I'm only at about chapter 3 right now, so it's pretty dense stuff.
Very dense, that's the word. I wish you well in that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I can't say I've read a whole lot of C.S. Lewis from start to finish other than the Narnia books. I really enjoy those. Mm-hmm. So children's literature.
Yes.
Yeah. But I want to thank you so much for sharing about yourself and your life and your faith, and thanks for all the things you do at the church as God opens up opportunities. And then blessings to you and to Carl on the new edition on the way.
Well, thank you so much.
Happy. Yeah.
We're both so excited.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much for watching and listening to our interview. I know you got some helpful things out of it, and I encourage you to join us the next time as we continue to bring you people from Shepherd of the Hills for you to get to know. Until then, the Lord's blessings to you. Please stay safe and be healthy, and the peace of the Lord be with you today.